Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that no matter what happens, chaos at work, unexpected setbacks, or even a difficult conversation, you can remain calm, unshaken, and in control. What would that feel like? For over 2,000 years, some of history's greatest minds, emperors, warriors, and philosophers, have quietly followed a set of timeless principles that gave them clarity, strength, and peace in the middle of life's storms. What if you could learn and apply those very same principles today? In this video, we'll uncover 12 Stoic principles that can immediately transform how you think, act, and respond to the world around you. These are not abstract theories. They are practical tools you can start using right now to create a calmer, more focused, and more resilient version of yourself. Principle number 1. Control what you can. Have you ever found yourself fuming in traffic, clenching the steering wheel, watching the minutes tick away as you grow more frustrated? Or maybe you've read a negative comment online, and it stayed in your mind for hours, even days, affecting your mood and your focus. In today's world, where news feeds, work deadlines, and unexpected events can hit us all at once, it's easy to feel like life is pulling us in 100 directions. And yet, the wisdom of the Stoics reminds us of a powerful, liberating truth. While we cannot control every event in life, we have complete power over how we choose to respond. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus put it plainly: it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That's easy to nod along to, but harder to live out when we're caught in the whirlwind of daily frustrations. Still, this idea is not only ancient wisdom, it's echoed in modern psychology. Carl Jung, the renowned psychologist, once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." In other words, the events themselves are not the whole story, the meaning we give them, and the choices we make in response, define our lives. Imagine again that traffic jam. You can stew in anger, honk your horn, and keep glancing at the clock, which will not make the line of cars move 1 inch faster. Or you could take a deep breath, accept that you cannot change the situation, and use that time to listen to a podcast you enjoy, call a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, or simply rest your mind. The traffic doesn't change, but you do, and in that shift, your stress eases, your mind calms, and your day begins to feel a little lighter. This principle of focusing on what we can control extends far beyond traffic jams or bad weather. It touches our work, our relationships, and our inner lives. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor of Rome, reminded himself in his meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think about that. How often do we hand over our peace of mind to something or someone completely outside our control? A colleague's mood, the outcome of a project, the opinion of a stranger online? Each time we do, we give away the one power we truly have. The Stoics practiced exercises to strengthen this discipline. One such exercise is called the dichotomy of control, writing down 2 lists, one for the things you can influence, and one for the things you cannot. In the first list might be your own words, actions, and priorities. In the second, the weather, the economy, or the choices of others. The practice is simple but profound. Keep your energy, time, and emotional investment firmly in the first column. Let go of the second. Let's apply this in a personal context. Imagine you're preparing for a job interview. You can control how you research the company, how you practice answering questions, how you choose your outfit. But you can't control who else applies, how the interviewer is feeling that day, or whether the role might be filled internally. Focus on what you can do, and release what you cannot, and you will walk into the interview with clarity and confidence. Regardless of the outcome, this doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent. On the contrary, it means we are more engaged in the parts of life where our influence is real. As Seneca wrote, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. By constantly worrying over what's beyond our reach, we drain our energy from the very things that could make a difference. The Stoic approach asks us to be wise gardeners, tend to the soil we can reach, water the plants that are in our care, and stop trying to control the weather. Of course, this is easier said than done. We live in a culture that often confuses control with security. We think, if I can control more things, I'll feel safe. But life doesn't work that way. Change and uncertainty are inevitable. The goal is not to control life itself, but to master the art of steering our own mind and actions through whatever comes. When we do, we find a strange paradox. We feel more freedom and more peace, even when life around us is unpredictable. Let's take a modern, everyday example: social media. You can't control what others post, or what they might say about you, but you can control how much time you spend scrolling, what content you choose to engage with, and whether you respond to a comment or let it pass. By choosing wisely, you protect your own mental space. When you begin to live this way, you start noticing the subtle but powerful effects. Stress levels drop, resentment fades, you have more patience for people, more clarity for decisions, and more energy for your goals. You're no longer tossed around by every headline, every rumor, every unexpected delay. You stand, instead, like a tree with deep roots, flexible enough to sway in the wind, strong enough not to be uprooted. One helpful daily habit is to pause and ask, is this within my control? If the answer is yes, act with intention. If the answer is no, let it go. This moment of awareness can save hours of needless frustration. As Epictetus reminded his students, make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. Living this way is a lifelong practice, not a one-time choice. There will be days you forget, and you will find yourself again caught in the trap of trying to control the uncontrollable. That's normal. The Stoics weren't perfect either. They struggled, they stumbled, and they reminded themselves daily of these truths. Progress, not perfection, was their aim. So the next time life throws something unexpected your way, whether it's a rude comment, a delayed flight, or a change in plans, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what is truly mine to control right now? And then, with calm clarity, put your energy where it will matter most. In the end, focusing on what we can control is not about shrinking our influence, it's about reclaiming it. It's about turning away from the chaos that's not ours to manage, and turning toward the work, the relationships, and the choices that are. It's about finding peace, not in controlling the storm, but in mastering the ship. Principle number 2. Obstacles as opportunities. When life throws us a challenge, our first instinct is often to ask, "Why me?" We see obstacles as roadblocks, interruptions to the smooth path we hoped to follow. They delay our plans, test our patience, and sometimes break our confidence. But the Stoics, those philosophers of resilience from ancient Greece and Rome, invite us to flip that script. They suggest that every obstacle is not just a hindrance, but also a hidden doorway to growth. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic thinker, famously wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." These words are more than poetic, they are practical instructions for living. Instead of seeing difficulties as detours, we can treat them as part of the path itself. When something stands in our way, it forces us to adapt, to innovate, to strengthen our character in ways that comfort and ease never could. Consider the story of Thomas Edison, whose laboratory burned down in 1914, destroying years of work. Instead of falling into despair, Edison is said to have remarked, "Thank goodness all our mistakes were burned up. Now we can start fresh again." This is a modern echo of the Stoic mindset. Instead of dwelling on loss, find the opportunity embedded within it. The Stoics teach that obstacles are not inherently good or bad, it is our judgment that makes them so. Seneca advised, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Think about it. The very qualities we admire in ourselves and others, patience, courage, perseverance, are forged not in times of comfort, but in moments of difficulty. Without obstacles, those virtues would remain dormant, untested, and undeveloped. Let's bring this idea into a personal context. Imagine you've been rejected from a job you truly wanted. At first, it feels crushing, but viewed through the Stoic lens, rejection is simply feedback. Maybe it points to a skill you need to develop, a different approach you could take, or even a better opportunity waiting for you elsewhere. The obstacle, rejection, becomes a compass, guiding you toward a stronger version of yourself. In everyday life, obstacles show up in many forms: a delayed flight, a conflict with a friend, an illness, a sudden financial strain. We can either meet them with resistance, wasting energy wishing they weren't there, or we can lean in. Ask ourselves, what can I learn from this? And begin to work with the situation, rather than against it. As Carl Jung noted, what you resist persists. The more we fight against reality, the more we suffer. But when we accept and adapt, we move forward. The Stoics practiced exercises to prepare themselves for life's inevitable challenges. One such exercise is called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. They would visualize potential obstacles before they happened, imagining loss, delays, failure, not to wallow in fear, but to rehearse their responses. By picturing these difficulties in advance, they were less shocked when they occurred, and better equipped to meet them with calm and purpose. In our modern lives, this practice might look like mentally rehearsing what we would do if a project at work falls through, if a relationship ends, or if plans change suddenly. When we anticipate challenges, not with paranoia, but with preparedness, we strengthen our resilience. The obstacle may still appear, but it will not catch us entirely off guard. Let's take another example: personal conflict. It's uncomfortable, even painful, when tensions arise with someone we care about. But conflict also offers a unique chance to practice patience, empathy, and the art of listening. Every disagreement is an opportunity to understand another perspective more deeply and to refine our communication skills. We might not enjoy the process, but it can make us better friends, partners, and colleagues. Seeing obstacles as opportunities doesn't mean pretending that difficulties don't hurt. The Stoics were not emotionless statues. They felt frustration, sadness, and disappointment like anyone else. What they cultivated was the discipline to move beyond those initial emotions. To ask, given that this is happening, how can I use it to grow? This mindset transforms us from passive victims of circumstance into active participants in our own development. Marcus Aurelius himself faced immense obstacles: wars, political unrest, personal losses. Yet he wrote in his private journal about the importance of meeting each challenge with virtue. He reminded himself daily that life would test him, and that those tests were the very grounds on which his character would be built. We may not rule an empire, but in our own way, we face battles that demand the same clarity and courage. So how can we practice this today? Start small. The next time something disrupts your plans, pause before reacting. Take a breath. Ask, how can I use this? Then act accordingly. Over time, this response becomes a habit, and your perspective shifts. You start to see the delay, the conflict, the setback, not as interruptions to your life, but as part of the life itself, shaping you into a wiser, stronger, more adaptable person. Remember, the obstacle is not the enemy. In many cases, it is the teacher. By leaning into the challenge, we gain skills, insight, and resilience that we could never develop otherwise. As Epictetus said, difficulties are things that show a person what they are. In the end, the Stoic view of obstacles is not about denying the pain they bring, but about discovering the possibility they hold. Life will continue to place stones in our path. We can trip over them, or we can use them to build the road ahead. The choice, as always, is ours. Principle number 3. Live in the now. In a world that never stops moving, it's easy to feel as though we're constantly living somewhere else, in the memories of yesterday, or in the anticipation of tomorrow. Our minds replay old conversations, mistakes, and missed chances, or leap forward to possible problems, plans, and dreams. And while planning ahead and learning from the past have their place, the Stoics remind us of something we too often forget. Life only ever truly happens in the present moment. Marcus Aurelius, writing nearly 2,000 years ago, urged himself in his meditations, do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. He understood that the ability to live fully in the here and now is both a discipline and a gift, a way of grounding ourselves so that we can appreciate the richness of life as it unfolds. In our modern world of constant notifications, relentless news cycles, and endless digital distractions, his advice is perhaps even more urgent today. Living in the present doesn't mean ignoring the past or refusing to plan for the future. It means refusing to let them consume the space where life is actually happening. When our minds are caught in replaying yesterday's regrets or predicting tomorrow's worries, we rob ourselves of the only moment we can truly act in, this one. Right now, consider how much of our stress comes from leaving the present moment. We worry about what might go wrong next week. We replay something someone said last month. But here's a question worth asking. What if, just for a while, we stopped borrowing trouble from the future and stopped dragging the weight of the past into today? What would that feel like? The Stoics practiced exercises to help anchor themselves in the now. One such practice is simply to notice and name what is around you at this very moment, the colors, sounds, textures, and sensations you are experiencing. Epictetus advised his students to be fully present to the duty at hand, to bring their attention entirely to the task before them, however small or routine it might seem. Washing dishes, walking to the store, writing an email. Each can be done with awareness and care, transforming the ordinary into something quietly profound. Modern psychology calls this mindfulness, and research shows it can lower stress, improve focus, and increase feelings of well-being. But the Stoics didn't just value mindfulness for its health benefits. They saw it as essential to living a virtuous life. If you are fully present, you are better able to make decisions that reflect your values, rather than being driven by distraction or habit. Let's take a simple, everyday example. Imagine you're having dinner with a friend. Your phone buzzes with a new message. Do you check it? In that moment, you have a choice: to be here, in this conversation, fully present with someone you value, or to let your attention drift elsewhere. The Stoic choice is to remain here, to honor the person in front of you, to give them your undivided attention. In doing so, you give a gift that is increasingly rare in our time: presence. Seneca captured this spirit when he wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future." This doesn't mean recklessness. It means savoring the cup of coffee while it's warm, listening to the rain without thinking about tomorrow's weather, noticing the laughter in a conversation without wondering when it will end. We can also see this in Aristotle's idea of eudaimonia, a flourishing life. He believed that living well required virtuous action in the present, not in some imagined future. If we wait to start living, once things settle down, we may find ourselves waiting forever. The truth is, there will always be challenges, always unfinished tasks, always reasons to postpone joy. The present moment is never perfect, but it is always available. Living in the now also means letting go of the illusion of control over time. We cannot change what has already happened. We cannot predict every turn the future will take. But we can choose our actions and attitudes in this moment. And that choice is powerful. This is where freedom lies, not in controlling life's timeline, but in engaging fully with the piece of it we hold right now. There's a Stoic exercise that can help with this: the view from above. Imagine rising above your current situation, above your house, your city, your country, and seeing yourself as part of the vast flow of human life. From this perspective, the small frustrations and worries that pull us out of the moment seem less urgent. What matters most is how we live right now, in this small slice of time we've been given. Think about the last time you were completely absorbed in something: a conversation, a project, a walk in nature. In those moments, Time seemed to dissolve. You weren't worrying about yesterday or tomorrow. You were simply there. That is the essence of living in the now. It doesn't require grand events or perfect conditions. It requires attention, openness, and a willingness to experience life without holding it at arm's length. Of course, it's not always easy. Our minds are restless, quick to wander. We might sit down to read, and within minutes, we're thinking about an errand we forgot to run or a conversation from last week. The Stoics would say, "Notice this. Gently bring your attention back." As with any skill, the more we practice returning to the present, the more naturally it becomes our home. Living in the now also has a deep connection to gratitude. When we are present, we notice the good that is already here, a kind word, a moment of rest, the taste of fresh fruit, the sound of music. Marcus Aurelius advised, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Gratitude grows naturally in the soil of the present moment, and it makes that moment even richer. It's worth remembering that every present moment will one day be a memory. How we live now shapes not only our current experience but also the story we will one day tell ourselves about our lives. If we rush through today on our way to some imagined better time, we may find that we've missed the very life we were hurrying to live. So how do we begin? Start with something small. Choose one daily activity: making coffee, brushing your teeth, walking the dog, and do it with full attention. Notice the sensations, the movements, the sounds. When your mind drifts, gently bring it back. Over time, this practice will begin to spread into other parts of your day. Another approach is to set small, check-in moments, perhaps before a meal, or when you arrive somewhere new, where you pause, take a breath, and notice your surroundings. These moments of presence act like stepping stones, guiding you back to the here and now. The Stoics would remind us that life is short, and the present is where it is actually lived. As Epictetus said, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself?" That demand is not about chasing some future version of happiness. It's about claiming the fullness of this moment and living it as well as you can. In the end, living in the now is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about choosing, again and again, to return to this moment, to inhabit it fully, and to let it shape us into people who are more attentive, more grateful, and more alive. This is where life happens, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but here, now, in the only time we truly have. Principle number 4. Self-discipline. When you hear the words self-discipline, what comes to mind? For many, it conjures up images of rigid schedules, endless restrictions, and a joyless routine. But the Stoics offer a different picture, one where self-discipline is not about depriving yourself, but about empowering yourself. It is the quiet strength of making choices that align with your deepest values and long-term goals, even when those choices are difficult in the moment. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, put it simply, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In the realm of self-discipline, this means that we are not slaves to our impulses, distractions, or passing moods. We can choose, deliberately, what we will do and how we will live. And that choice repeated day after day, shapes our character and our destiny. Self-discipline is about saying yes to what truly serves you, and no to what pulls you away from your path, even when the temptation is strong. Think about the moments when it's easier to stay in bed than to exercise, to spend money impulsively instead of saving for a goal, to scroll through social media instead of working on something meaningful. The Stoic path doesn't deny that these temptations exist. It teaches us to meet them with awareness and to choose wisely. Seneca advised us to be steadfast and control our desires, rather than being controlled by them. This is not an argument for a life without pleasure, but for a life where pleasure is not the master. True freedom, he believed, comes from governing ourselves, from directing our lives according to reason and virtue, rather than letting every passing whim steer the ship. Why is self-discipline so important? Aristotle, though not a Stoic, offered insight that the Stoics embraced. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. It's not the grand gestures that define us, but the small, consistent choices we make every day. Self-discipline builds those habits that keep us moving toward the person we want to become. In practical terms, building self-discipline starts small. Pick one area of your life you want to improve: a healthier diet, a regular workout, more focused work time. Set clear, achievable goals, and take it one day at a time. Every time you choose the action that aligns with your values, you strengthen the muscle of discipline. As Epictetus reminded his students, no great thing is created suddenly. Self-discipline is not about perfection, it's about persistence. There will be days when you stumble, when you choose the easier path. The Stoics understood this and urged compassion for oneself. What matters is returning to the path, again and again, with renewed commitment. In the end, self-discipline is a kind of quiet courage. It's the courage to delay gratification for the sake of something greater, to endure short-term discomfort for long-term peace, and to live in harmony with your values in a world full of distractions. By practicing it, we create not just a more productive life, but a more meaningful one. Principle number 5. Emotional resilience. Life has a way of testing us, often when we least expect it. A sudden loss, a hurtful word, a plan that falls apart. These moments can stir emotions that feel overwhelming: anger, sadness, frustration. The Stoics did not deny these emotions. They felt them as deeply as anyone. But they believed that our true strength lies not in avoiding these feelings, but in learning how to navigate them with grace. This is the essence of emotional resilience. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Emotional resilience begins here, with the understanding that while we cannot control what happens to us, we can control how we respond. Our emotions do not have to dictate our actions. We can feel the storm without letting it sweep us away. Seneca wrote about life's hardships as tests of character. Instead of treating challenges as unfair burdens, he saw them as opportunities to strengthen patience, courage, and wisdom. Imagine facing a heated argument. The impulse might be to lash out in return, but emotional resilience invites us to pause, to listen, to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. In that pause, we reclaim our power. This is not about suppressing emotions or pretending to be unaffected. Aristotle spoke of the golden mean, the balance between extremes. In emotional terms, this means avoiding both the suppression of feelings and their unchecked expression. Resilience is about finding that middle ground, where we acknowledge what we feel and then choose a response aligned with our values. In our modern world, emotional resilience is perhaps more needed than ever. We face a constant stream of news, opinions, and challenges, each with the potential to unsettle our peace. Consider social media. A single negative comment can linger in our minds for days. But if we step back and ask, is this worth my energy? Is this within my control? We often find that we can release it, and with it, the tension it brings. The Stoics practiced resilience through self-awareness. Epictetus advised his students to review their day each evening, asking themselves what they did well, where they faltered, and how they could improve. This kind of reflection helps us recognize patterns in our emotional responses. Over time, we begin to see triggers for what they are, and we learn to meet them with steadiness rather than volatility. Practical tools for building emotional resilience include mindfulness, journaling, and trusted conversations. Writing down what we feel can help us process emotions without being ruled by them. Speaking with a friend or mentor offers perspective and reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles. Above all, resilience is an act of self-compassion. When we stumble, when we let our emotions lead us into words or actions we regret, the Stoic way is not self-punishment, but self-correction. We learn, we adjust, and we return to the path. In this way, each challenge becomes not a setback, but a step forward. Emotional resilience does not make life easier, but it makes us stronger. It allows us to move through hardship without losing ourselves, to meet adversity with calm, and to emerge from trials wiser than before. As Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And in that reaction, in that choice, lies our freedom. Principle number 6. Memento mori. There is a phrase from ancient Rome that carries a quiet but powerful reminder. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. At first, it might sound dark or morbid, but the Stoics embraced it as a call to live more fully, more intentionally, and with greater gratitude for the present moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." For him, and for other Stoics, the awareness of mortality was not meant to create fear, but to sharpen focus. Life is brief, uncertain, and fragile. When we keep this truth close, we waste less time on trivialities and live more in alignment with what truly matters. Seneca, in his essay on the shortness of life, urged us not to squander our days on distractions and petty concerns. He believed that when we remember the limits of our time, we begin to choose more wisely, investing in meaningful work, nurturing relationships, and savoring the simple moments we often overlook. Think of it this way. If you knew you had only a limited number of sunsets left to see, would you spend one of them arguing over something insignificant? If you understood that each conversation with a loved one could be your last, would you be quicker to speak words of kindness? Memento mori is not about living in fear of death. It's about living in deeper appreciation of life. The Stoics also saw this reflection as a way to strip away the noise of social expectations. When you realize that your time is finite, the opinions of strangers and the lure of status lose much of their grip. What remains is a clarity about who you are, what you value, and how you want to spend your precious days. In practical terms, memento mori can be as simple as a daily reminder, a note on your desk, a phrase in your journal, that time is passing. It can be a moment each morning to reflect on the day ahead, asking, if this were my last, how would I live it? This exercise isn't meant to make us anxious, but to help us prioritize the things that give life meaning. In the end, remembering that we will die is not about being morose, it is about being awake. It's about looking at the time we have and choosing to fill it with purpose, love, and presence. As the Stoics teach, death is not the enemy, a life half-lived is. By embracing memento mori, we can meet each day with open eyes, an open heart, and the courage to live without regret. Principle number 7. Gratitude. There's a simple shift in perspective that can transform our lives. Focusing on what we have, instead of what we lack. This practice, known as gratitude, is not just a pleasant sentiment, it is a discipline. A way of training the mind to notice abundance rather than scarcity. The Stoics, wise as they were, understood that gratitude is a foundation for peace and contentment. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." These words invite us to see life itself as a gift, even before we measure it by accomplishments or possessions. Seneca warned against being endlessly driven by desire, chasing more without ever finding satisfaction. He believed that happiness comes when we recognize that much of what we long for is already within our grasp. Gratitude doesn't require perfect conditions. In fact, it's often most powerful when life is imperfect. Consider a time when things didn't go as planned, a delayed trip, a lost opportunity, a difficult season. In those moments, it's easy to focus on what's missing. But if we pause, we might notice small blessings. The friend who called to check in, the unexpected free time to rest, the lesson learned through struggle. The Stoics encouraged this shift in perspective, asking not, "Why is this happening to me?" but "What can I learn from this?" This mindset extends beyond personal comfort. Gratitude strengthens relationships by encouraging us to express appreciation for others. A simple thank you to a colleague, a note to a friend, a moment of recognition for a partner's efforts. These gestures deepen bonds and remind both giver and receiver of the value they bring to each other's lives. As Aristotle noted, recognizing the good around us is part of living a virtuous, flourishing life. Modern science supports what the Stoics knew. Studies show that regularly practicing gratitude can lower stress, improve sleep, and boost overall well-being. One simple habit is to reflect each day on 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be grand. Perhaps the taste of fresh coffee, a kind word from a stranger, or the warmth of sunlight through a window. Over time, this daily practice rewires the brain to notice the positive more readily. The Stoics also taught that gratitude includes embracing challenges. Seneca suggested that hardships, while unpleasant, are opportunities to strengthen virtues like patience, resilience, and courage. When we view difficulties as teachers rather than enemies, we begin to appreciate even the struggles for the growth they inspire. Let's imagine a modern example. You lose a job you thought was secure. The initial reaction might be fear, frustration, or grief, but through the Stoic lens, you might also find gratitude for the skills you've gained, the connections you've made, and the possibility of a path that aligns more closely with your values. Gratitude does not erase the difficulty, it reframes it, allowing space for both acknowledgement of the pain and recognition of the potential. Practicing gratitude doesn't mean ignoring life's challenges or pretending everything is perfect. The Stoics would reject shallow optimism. Instead, they offer a grounded gratitude, one that sees life clearly, with its mix of beauty and hardship, and still chooses to value what is good. As Epictetus put it, he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. To live with gratitude is to live with awareness. It is to slow down enough to notice the fleeting moments that make life rich, the laughter of a child, the rhythm of footsteps on a quiet walk, the comfort of a shared meal. These moments, small though they seem, are the threads that weave a life of meaning. In the end, gratitude is not simply a feeling, it is a way of being. It's a lens that changes how we see the world and how we respond to it. It softens resentment, deepens joy, and gives us a steadier heart in the face of change. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that abundance is often already here, waiting to be seen. Principle number 8. Personal excellence. Personal excellence is not about perfection. It's about striving to live each day in alignment with our values. Becoming a little better than we were yesterday. For the Stoics, excellence, or virtue, was the highest good. Everything else, wealth, reputation, even comfort, was secondary to living a life of integrity, wisdom, courage, and self-control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." His words are a direct challenge to stop debating ideals from the sidelines and instead live them in action. Personal excellence is measured not by what we say we value, but by what we consistently do, even when it's difficult. Seneca emphasized that self-improvement is a lifelong pursuit. He advised living in accordance with nature and reason, believing that true excellence comes from within and is reflected in the way we treat others, the choices we make, and the discipline we maintain. Epictetus reminded his students that while we cannot control the external world, we can always control our own will, our choices, and our moral character. In practical terms, personal excellence begins with setting our own standards rooted in our values, not in society's shifting expectations. It means asking ourselves, am I living in a way that reflects the person I want to be? Am I acting with honesty, fairness, and compassion, even when no one is watching? Aristotle famously said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. This truth is echoed in Stoic practice. Excellence is the result of countless small decisions, made with intention. Over time, it's found in choosing patience over anger, responsibility over excuses, and integrity over convenience. A modern example might be the professional who refuses to cut corners, even under pressure, because they value quality and honesty. or the parent who models kindness and resilience for their children, knowing that these lessons will outlast any material gift. In both cases, the pursuit of excellence is not about recognition, but about living in a way that brings self-respect and lasting peace. Personal excellence also requires resilience. Setbacks and failures are inevitable, but they are also opportunities to grow stronger and wiser. The Stoic does not crumble under difficulty, they adapt, learn, and continue forward. In the end, personal excellence is a way of life. It's about making the most of our potential, not to impress others, but to live with the quiet satisfaction that we are being true to ourselves. As Marcus Aurelius might remind us, the reward for excellence is not applause, it is the life we create in its pursuit. Principle number 9. Authenticity. In a world where likes, follows, and public opinion often dictate our sense of worth, it's easy to lose sight of who we truly are. Authenticity, the courage to live in alignment with our own values rather than conforming to external expectations, is a rare but powerful virtue. For the Stoics, authenticity was inseparable from inner peace, because only when we live according to our true selves can we find lasting contentment. Marcus Aurelius once observed, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinions of others." His words reveal a deep paradox. We instinctively care for ourselves, yet so often allow the judgments of strangers to outweigh our own self-assessment. Seneca urged us to live a life that is ours, not one scripted by the demands or approval of others. He believed that real happiness comes when our actions and principles are in harmony, even if that path is more difficult. Epictetus, in his practical wisdom, reminded his students that the opinions of others are beyond our control. Therefore, to anchor our peace in them is to surrender our freedom. Living authentically begins with self-reflection. We must ask, whose life am I living? Are my choices driven by my own convictions? Or am I simply trying to fit into someone else's mold? This kind of questioning can be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. When we strip away what is borrowed, what remains is our true self. A modern example might be someone who leaves a lucrative career to pursue work they find meaningful, despite the raised eyebrows of peers, or the individual who chooses a simpler lifestyle because it aligns with their values. Even in a culture that prizes constant consumption, in each case, the decision is not about rebelling for its own sake, but about living in harmony with personal truth. The Stoics would also remind us that authenticity is not about rigidly clinging to every opinion or habit we've ever had. It's about staying true to our principles while remaining open to growth. An authentic life allows for change, as long as that change comes from within and not from the pressure to conform. In the end, authenticity is a form of quiet strength. It asks us to stand firm in who we are, even when that means standing alone. It invites us to measure our worth not by the applause we receive, but by the integrity with which we live, and it offers a freedom that no external validation can match, the freedom to be unapologetically ourselves. Principle number 10. Accept change. Change is the one constant in life, yet it is also one of the things we often resist the most. We grow attached to routines, relationships, and familiar comforts, only to feel unsettled or even fearful when they shift. The Stoics, however, saw change not as a threat, but as a natural rhythm of the universe, something to be embraced with openness and grace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny." For what could more aptly fit your needs? His words remind us that every change, whether welcome or unwelcome, has its place in the larger tapestry of life. Seneca warned against clinging too tightly to present circumstances, knowing that they are destined to evolve. In his view, flexibility was not weakness, but wisdom. Epictetus taught that while we cannot control external events, we can control our attitude toward them. This is where our power lies. When faced with change, whether it's a career shift, a move to a new city, or the loss of something dear, we can choose to see it as an opportunity to grow, rather than a reason to despair. Think about the changing seasons. Each one brings both endings and beginnings, the falling of leaves, the blooming of flowers, the quiet of winter, the renewal of spring. Our lives move through similar cycles. Resisting these cycles does not stop them, it only makes the transition harder. Accepting them allows us to adapt, learn, and discover new possibilities. In practical terms, embracing change can begin with a simple shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" we can ask, "What can I learn from this?" This small reframe can transform uncertainty into curiosity, and fear into resilience. Modern psychology echoes this Stoic insight, noting that those who view change as an opportunity for growth experience less stress and greater well-being. By accepting change, we free ourselves from the exhausting struggle to control the uncontrollable, and we open the door to experiences we might never have sought out on our own. In the end, accepting change is not about passive surrender, it's about active engagement with life as it is. It's about trusting that each turn in the path, however unexpected, can carry us toward growth. And it's about finding peace not in holding on, but in moving forward. Principle number 11. Compassion and empathy. In a world where differences often divide us, compassion and empathy have the power to bring us back together. The Stoics, though sometimes misunderstood as detached or unemotional, valued these qualities deeply. They saw kindness not as weakness, but as an essential expression of virtue and a recognition of our shared humanity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." This simple image reminds us that our well-being is interconnected with that of others. When we act with compassion, we contribute not only to another's welfare, but to the health of the whole community, including ourselves. Seneca believed that compassion was part of our natural instinct, urging us to treat others with generosity and understanding, even those who have wronged us. He saw empathy as a way to bridge the gap between people, to see beyond mistakes and into the struggles that shape another's actions. Epictetus advised his students to strive to understand the perspectives of others, recognizing that everyone acts based on their own experiences and limitations. Empathy begins with listening, truly listening, to the words and emotions of another. It's about setting aside our urge to judge or to respond immediately, and instead seeking to understand. This could be as simple as giving a friend space to share their worries without interruption, or as challenging as trying to see a heated disagreement through the other person's eyes. Acts of compassion do not have to be grand to be meaningful. A smile to a stranger, a kind word to a colleague, a willingness to help without expecting anything in return. These small gestures ripple outward, often in ways we never see. The Stoics understood that the impact of kindness can extend far beyond the moment. Modern research supports this timeless wisdom, showing that compassion and empathy not only strengthen relationships, but also improve our own mental well-being. Helping others fosters a sense of connection and purpose, reminding us that we are part of something larger than ourselves. The Stoics might say that to live without compassion is to live in isolation, cut off from the very fabric of life. To live with it is to embrace our role as members of a shared human story. In the end, compassion and empathy are not just virtues to practice. They are choices that shape the kind of world we create together, one interaction at a time. Principle number 12. Reflection and review. In a world that constantly urges us forward, pausing to look back can feel like a luxury we can't afford. Yet for the Stoics, reflection was not optional, it was essential. They understood that without regular self-examination, we risk drifting through life without direction, repeating mistakes, and neglecting the values we claim to hold dear. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, modeled this practice by writing honestly about his thoughts, actions, and struggles. These private reflections were not for display, but for guidance. They helped him steer his life toward virtue, even while ruling an empire. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, he wrote, reminding us that our inner dialogue shapes our outer reality. Seneca advised regular self-assessment, likening life to a performance. At the end of each day, he suggested we should review our role, asking whether we acted in harmony with the character we wish to embody. Epictetus encouraged a similar exercise, urging his students to ask, "What did I do well? What did I do poorly? What duties did I leave undone?" This was not about self-criticism, but about awareness and growth. In practice, reflection might take just a few minutes before bed, mentally walking through the day, noting moments of pride and moments for improvement. Writing these thoughts down can make the process even more powerful, creating a record of progress over time. Reflection also pairs naturally with gratitude. By acknowledging the good in our day, however small, we balance the tendency to focus only on shortcomings. This combination of honest review and appreciation nurtures both humility and optimism. Ultimately, reflection and review are acts of self-respect. They say, "My life matters enough to examine, my growth matters enough to measure, and my choices matter enough to guide with intention." In pausing to look back, we find the insight we need to move forward with greater clarity and purpose. Conclusion. The Stoics understood that life would never be without challenges. They did not seek to escape difficulties, but to face them with wisdom, courage, and composure. In doing so, they discovered a profound truth. Peace comes not from controlling the world, but from mastering ourselves. These principles are as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. They can guide us through uncertainty, anchor us in our values, and remind us that every moment is an opportunity to live with virtue. No matter where you are in life's journey, the wisdom of Stoicism can be the quiet anchor that holds you steady, even in the fiercest storms. Here at Stoic Timeless Lessons, we share not just philosophy, but living truths, ideas you can carry into every moment. Remember, transformation doesn't happen in grand leaps, it begins in the small, unseen choices you make each day. Keep exploring, keep reflecting, because somewhere deep within, there's a strength, a clarity, waiting for you to call it by its true name.